morning. Welcome back to Daybreak on this 6th day of December 2021. It's now 21 minutes to 7 o'clock, and my name is Sam Gituku. It's time to have a discussion here with Herman Manyora, political analyst, but also a lecturer at the University of Nairobi. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Sam.
Robert Mwingi, Member of Parliament for Kathiani constituency. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Sam.
We're also joined virtually by one David Ole Sankok, who is a nominated Member of Parliament. He's in Arusha. Welcome back to the show. It's been such a long time, and shortly we'll be joined by Simon Gikuru, the Secretary General of ANC.
Thank you, Sam.
Let me begin with you, Sankok. How are you doing, and what's the business in Arusha?
I'm always fine. You know, the master here in Tanzania are more than those who are in Kenya. So I'm here with my brothers and sisters.
That's interesting. You're just going to see your brothers and sisters, and congratulations for that. And I want us to begin by looking at what is in the dailies. On the front page of the Daily Nation, you see the 50-shilling domed Mwingi bus ride. Desperate travelers stranded on the banks of the Solent River in Zai and had just boarded the bus ferrying members of a church choir to a wedding ceremony for the short distance across, only to meet their death minutes later. The death toll, of course, now stands at 33, but more bodies could still be trapped in the wreckage. You see the images of persons there, some of them officials of the Kenyan Navy, but also with local residents during the recovery operation yesterday at River Nziu. That's interesting. You see there's confusion on the name of the river, Nziu, but there's also Nzai. I think it should be Nziu. And a school bus ferrying choir members to a wedding ceremony was swept away by raging waters on Saturday. It is also one of the main stories on the Standard, because you'll see that image there. We pushed driver to cross the river. Survivors recount they sang, praised and prayed for water level to subside. When they saw smaller vehicles make it across, they overloaded the bus to add its weight and decided to take the risk. Of course, very devastating news. And let me begin with you, Herman. Your reflections on what just happened on Saturday, such a joy turning to what it is now, sadness and mourning.
Good morning, Sam and viewers. My condolences to the family, the bereaved families, and my prayers for those who are still in hospital. But really, Sam, there is something that is disturbing us in this country. In this country, we have decided we will never be serious with anything. You know, some of these things are things that we could actually avoid. This is a place we have all known deserves attention by way of perhaps a better crossing facility like a bridge. And even the people themselves, including, this is the wrong time to say this, Sam, but even the driver, how many times have we been told never to play with water? Moving water is dangerous. It is said, and in the interest of viewers, 1 foot, which is just something like this, is enough to sweep away a car. 1 foot, just like this, water deep, this deep. You know, on top of a bridge. It can wash your car away, sweep it away. I've lost a sister-in-law in that manner. For a big truck, like a lorry like that one, it's just 18 inches, under 2 feet, you know, something like this. So we really know these things, all of us know, but we keep taking the risks. So I think as Kenyans also, we must learn to be serious, especially when you are carrying passengers. And I heard somewhere people, I don't know whether this was a private school or you know, every school has this yellow color. This guy would know. There were directives that school buses should not be used for other purposes, like ferrying other people. But basically, we give our condolences, pray for those who are still in hospital, and ask the rescue teams please to move with speed, that sometimes not rescue to rescue people, even to retrieve the bodies so that the affected families can at least deal with it and bring the thing to closure by way of giving decent burial to their loved ones. And again, even in that department, Sam, something small happens in this country. A tree falls across the road. It takes 2 days. Power lines can't be restored a whole week. You see the shenanigans, I will call that shenanigans. One then begins to ask themselves, it is a country that can even go to war with anybody. Surely. If the military cannot, militaries are mobilized to construct a bridge within hours, not days. And in this country, with all the disaster management talk and KDF and the rest coming in, we thank them, they do their best. But then you get asking yourself, can we really even fight a war with anybody if we cannot mobilize to remove a tree across the road, restore power lines in time, retrieve a bus from a river, and we are counting days, not hours, and you are told even your security forces are involved, then you begin to wonder, can we even go to war with any country?
But Haman,
even a poor one, a small one.
One might question your remarks. Maybe you're not appreciating the difficulty of the weather and the water that was there.
You remember that tragic instance that was at Mombasa, the ferry, when the right people came with the right gear? What happened? Immediately. I'm saying, Sam, this is a tragic thing. It is even bad to talk about it in the way we are talking about it. You get it. But what I'm saying, we need to show a degree of seriousness when we are dealing with matters such as this.
Okay. Yeah. I'll come to you, Honorable Mbui, but first, Honorable Sankok, what are your reflections witnessing what just happened on Saturday, and what lessons must we pick from such tragedies?
First of all, death is very painful, but this one is more painful. And to me, I'm lost for words. I can only pray that God give the family strength and protection at this very trying moment. I want also to tell Kenyans that these are the lessons that we have learned. That there is firefighters, but there is no water fighters. Kuna zimamoto, hakuna zimamaji. Kwa hivyo mnapoelekea nyumbani, take care of any amount of water along our roads. And again, the government, please let the 20 plus people who have perished, let their blood be the last one that we lose because of maybe bridges being overflooded. We should actually respond. First of all, in that particular river, let us respond in a way that the government show that it is serious by constructing a clear bridge that we will no longer and will never lose people again at that particular river. So I think it is a very painful death. For me, I'm lost for what? I am sympathizing with the families. I'm sympathizing with the government because, of course, it have reacted, and I think it is a disaster by itself. It is more than the attack of Al-Shabaab. It is so painful, especially people from one family, people from one area. You know, I don't even know how the burial will look like. I'm lost for words.
All right. And of course, it's a very painful experience, even speaking to the families in our bulletin last night and this morning. And Simon Gikuru, Secretary General of ANC, now joins us. And Simon, we're just talking about what happened on Saturday. I don't know what your thoughts are this morning.
Yes, good morning, Sam. I hope you can hear me very well. Am I audible?
Right.
Yes, I want to join my colleagues this morning and also share my condolences to the families that were affected by the NZU bus incident. It's actually a very, very sad situation. It's disastrous. It's a tragedy. And this is a clear depiction that at some point you would see that our people, the Kenyans, have been left on their own by their government to just survive. It's just an indication that Kenyans are survivors, because some, you can imagine that this 21st century, with all the advancements that have been made politically, especially for Kenya with the advent of evolution, and we cannot put a proper, safe bridge for our people, then it begs the question, why do we go to the ballot every 5 years? That tells you there's something extremely wrong with our leadership. And even in terms of their priorities, if you look at the monies that are going to the counties every year, and you also listen to the figures that are being wasted in embezzlement, in corruption, in mismanagement, then you just realize that we just have a government that just don't care about its people. And you see some.
Well, I think
of the social contract. It to fulfill its part of the social contract with the people, because the government is a social contract. You agree with your leaders that we are going to cede some of our powers to you, so that in return you'll do A, B, C, D. But you realize that our leaders simply don't care about the people. And I think going forward, we need to reflect as Kenyans and ask ourselves, what kind of leaders are we giving ourselves? Because leaders' priorities should be the priorities of the people that elected them. So I think it's a very tragic situation. It's very sad. As Hancock says, you can imagine when watching that bus and you imagine yourself inside there, just suffocating in water. You can imagine how the women were crying and wailing. You can imagine if there are children inside there. It just causes goosebumps, and you wonder, is this really?
Okay. All right. Simon, we're having challenges with your signal. We try to work on that. But Honorable Mbui, back in studio. Of course, alongside what happened in Mwingi, there was also that tragedy in Bondo where some miners were trapped after they were looking for gold. And their mine collapsed. We understand that the recovery or rescue and recovery operation is still going on for the 4. But when you have to reflect on, because that bridge would appear like basic infrastructure, and I don't think this is the very first time there is receiving rain, so it's something that they have had to deal with. What comes to mind, almost 60 years since independence, and you have to lose lives in such a manner?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. First, I want to also pass my condolences to the bereaved families and friends and neighbors and all those that are affected in one way or the other by this tragedy. It's an unfortunate situation. And I like when you mentioned that almost 60 years after independence, we are still grappling with basic infrastructure and basic issues. In fact, somehow I'll tell you, I come from that region, Lower Eastern, and it is an area that is constantly affected by issues to do with rain. I mean, most of the year we will have no rain. Many years we have no rain, and so of course our region is arid. We cannot even be able to put food on the table for our people. But the minute the rains come, again we cannot move because our roads become impassable, because we have so many hundreds of kilometers of roads that are not all weather. And then of course this kind of tragedy where people have to cross from one side of the region to the other, and the only access roads are those, or access regions are those that are flooded in such a way that our people's lives are endangered when they go through this. So it's something that as Simon has said, that governments need to think about, because how can our people move around? Because look at it this way. This was probably a planned wedding function, and the only access was probably that bridge. And so these people must have waited patiently until they thought that it was now safe enough to cross. And by saying it was safe, it wasn't because we've seen that so many have perished, but they had probably no other alternative. I've heard my party leader say that he's now going to talk to the president so that they can sort this out. And I was with him when actually this happened from an SDA church in Nairobi, Southeast on Saturday, together with actually ANC leader, and even Simon was there with us when it happened. We actually got real-time information because social media, someone took the video and posted it to the senator who was with us. So we were able to see it immediately when it happened. And it is such a painful thing that we are now discussing infrastructure. We have to talk to the president for him to fix for us a bridge. And yet, like Simon says, our counties have been getting money from 2013 up to now. Really, I think something needs to be done. Again, Kenyans cannot be stopped from moving around and from making a living. In that tragedy, and in the tragedy that has happened also for the miners, these are people who are trying to earn a living. And so therefore, I think our disaster preparedness needs to be improved to such a level that, in fact, up to probably up to the sub-county level, that there should be people that can guide the community on what they can do and what they cannot, so that we can be able to provide, you know, a safe haven and of course, allow people ability to be able to go on with their affairs as expected, because you want to go and mine because that's what you do for a living, and then the mines cave in and kill you. I mean, these are some of the things that people do in their day-to-day living. But why is it that so many years after independence, we are not able to secure our people? Why is it we are not able, using our systems, to be able to look at the mines and tell them this is unsafe, do not go there? Why is it many years after independence, a bridge that I have had a resident say it claims lives every time it rains? I mean, surely how many people need to die for governments to wake up and start working? I'm not blaming the national government. I think for me, I look at the county governments, because they are supposed to know those things that affect their people. It is actually the government of Kitui that needs to know that the people in Kitui need to move from one place to the other. And even if this bridge is complicated, maybe they could find an alternative route and provide people with alternatives and lock out those bridges that cannot be used safely during the rain. So I think the county governments also need to take their fair share of blame on this particular issue. Of course, finally, I will say that the president has said it. If it rains, do not attempt to cross rivers when they are flooded. And I've seen very many accidents of this nature. I've seen people's cars swept away. I've seen people swept away. I've seen people on borders. Kenyans also have this tendency of taking serious risks. And I don't know. It's just a tragedy that we cannot even. I'm also about to say, like my colleague, that it's difficult to know what to say, because this is really an unfortunate situation.
Indeed, it is. And I want us to exit from this conversation. But Herman, look, the situation in Bondo, there are so many communities in the western part of the country that are doing mining at the most basic level, and all these years we haven't found a way of addressing these industries as a real business. How can governments, or being county governments or even the national government, how can they help to intervene so that the miners themselves, or those other smaller industries, they can do so in a safe manner, looking at what they're getting out of such a venture?
Yeah, once again, it's a question of seriousness that I always talk about. We must be serious as people. If we were serious, we would know, first of all, this can be a source of income for our people and even for the government. And therefore, focus on it and see how best, even at that small level, we can extract the gold, for example. It happens even in my place, and you can see it is dangerous. It's just bad. It's not even the safety of the people. It is even the exploitation, Some foreigners are there just waiting for those boys after they have been going through that problem and the trouble of doing whatever they do in a crude manner. The foreigners are there to get the gold dust and whatever it is, exploit them. And even, I mean, government can't even intervene at that level of exploitation. There was a standoff between, I think, the Nandi senator or Nandi government with some foreigner extracting gold in Nandi. That's the kind of effort I would want to see. I think it was the senator or the entire government of Nandi. Because there's this foreigner. This is exposing our people to danger. Let's do it in a better way. So I think local government, in terms of the county governments in those affected areas, and government, the national government itself, ought to see this as a possible source of revenue for the people and the government, and move in with modern technology, modern assistance, expertise, and so on and so forth. But generally, when it comes to the dangers, because this is not the first time it is happening. Our people have died in these mines. It's almost every year, several times in a year. Surely, it gets me back to what I'm saying, that our disaster preparedness is wanting as a country. You know, we live in a world today, the 21st century, where there's so much at our disposal as both people, individuals, and governments. And government must also remember, Sam, there is shame that is brought to the country and the people when we can't handle certain small things. So what I'm saying, this country ought to have a serious policy on disaster management and preparedness. And you see, when I say there was no speed, somebody texts me and tells me that is, you are being insensitive. But I'm looking at the Garissa incident. You remember when our university students died? Remember, there were 2 choppers that could transport the wreckage squad to Garissa. One of them was taking the cabinet secretary somewhere on the North Rift, those West Pokot areas. Please note that. Another one, and I'm saying it on live TV, another one, it is said, had gone to Mombasa. Nobody disputes it has gone to Mombasa. But the guy in charge disputes the fact that he had gone to pick his daughter-in-law. That's what he disputes. But he doesn't dispute it he had gone to Mombasa. He said on routine, that's making it even worse. Back to what I have said. We must be serious when dealing with human activities and human life. We must also know there is a shame that comes our way when the world watches that we cannot handle certain small things. When a building collapses and we take a whole week going through the rubble and the world is watching, and when other people in other parts of the world in the 21st century can handle that disaster in a better way, in a shorter way, because when you are a human being, Sam, and your loved one is inside there, yes, you know they have died, but the pain of waiting just to see even the body itself is unbearable. So you lessen people's pain. The pain will be there. Losing somebody is painful, but the pain is multiplied several times over when your loved one is underwater. You know they have died, of course. You know they're under rubble. You know they're under that mine. You know they have died. But just waiting for the body to be retrieved is so painful that we as a people have to move a little faster in the future by being more prepared, by equipping, for example, our forces to be able to deal with these things in the manner it is supposed to happen in the 21st century. Even just mobilizing the equipment to Kitui. We should be in a position to do that within reasonable time, not days. Yeah.
All right, and of course, our thoughts and prayers are with the families that have been affected, and our teams are still on the ground to follow up on the latest from the river, but also visiting families to check on how they are faring. Again, our thoughts and prayers. We want to take a short break here. When we come back, we will dive into the matters politics on what has been going on in the country and also projecting on what's expected in the coming weeks and months to the general election 2022. Back in a moment.